open the Joint Architectural Board of Review and Montecito Board of Architectural Review hearing for November 2nd of 2022. And we can start with a roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair Marr. I'll go ahead and start with the Montecito Board of Architecture Review roll call. Chair Watson.
Here.
Vice Chair Mendro.
I think absent.
Perfect.
As of right now, I think.
Board Member Kung.
Yep.
Board Member Gottstanker.
Here.
Board Member Wolf.
Here.
And Board Member Aldrich.
Here.
Perfect.
And Sharp.
We've got
And Board Member Sharp.
And Board Member Sharp, my apologies.
Here.
Thank you. And then for City Architectural Board of Review, Chair Moore.
Here.
Vice Chair Six.
Here.
Board Member Anderson.
Here.
Board Member Black.
Here.
Board Member Noon.
Here.
Board Member Olson is absent. And then Board Member Whalen.
Here.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And for ABR, we need to open up public comment for items that are not on today's agenda. Is there anyone that would like to speak?
Thank you, Chair Moore. I'll go ahead and start with virtual public comment. If anyone joining via Zoom would like to speak on items not on today's agenda, please go ahead and raise your hand. Not seeing any raised hands. We also did not receive any written correspondence, and I don't have any speaker slips for this item. Thank you.
All right, we can close general public comment and go to our item for the day. This is a continued item here for project design approval and final approval. This is the intersection of Olive Mill Road, Coast Village Road, and Jamison Lane. And this is the proposal for improvements to this intersection by creating a new intersection configuration. The project proposes to enhance the traffic operations and safety of the intersection by reconfiguring the into a roundabout, adding sidewalks, crosswalks, and landscaping, as well as connecting existing bicycle paths. This project will be reviewed by both the City Architectural Board of Review and the County Santa Barbara Board of Architectural Review. So this is specific to the city's ABR, but the project requires compliance with the city's project compatibility analysis, the Highway 101 Coastal Parkway design guidelines, outdoor lighting, and street light design guidelines, and then for Montecito architectural guidelines and development standards for the county. The project was last here August 12th of 2019. At this point, I think we can jump into the presentation unless there's anything else that staff has for us.
Thank you, Chair Moore, members of the public. My name is Megan Arciniega. I'm the project planner for the City of Santa Barbara. I just wanted to take a moment to introduce the project and why we're here and focus us on a review today. So as you know, the proposed intersection improvement splits the jurisdiction between the city and the county. We did a joint design review workshop prior to the application coming in. We had a series of workshops with the applicant team. That's a requirement of the city's highway guidelines that we do preliminary work and design. So we went through that process for about a year, and then subsequently the application went through our coastal development permit process, as it did with the county as well, and we did a joint planning commission hearing with the Santa Barbara City Planning Commission and Montecito Planning Commission. The project received approvals from both planning commissions and has been working up to their final details to this point. What you're reviewing today is a request for both project design approval, or for the county side preliminary approval and final approval for both. The applicant has prepared final details with that in mind. Prior to this review, there were comments regarding landscape design, materials, et cetera, so we'd be revisiting that today. So your boards can take action for both PDA or final if you feel that is appropriate. If you have any questions, so I'm Megan Arciniega, the city planner. Willow Brown is my county counterpart. She's at the end of the table and she can answer questions relating to the county's jurisdiction on the project, if you have any questions in that regard. So I think that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Okay, just a follow-up question, I think, for everybody.
Sure.
Has the project, I guess, final checklist been confirmed and it meets all of the requirements for final approval from both boards?
Yes, so I'm not familiar if the county has a final approval checklist, but the final approval checklist was submitted and those items identified on the plans and submittal materials. Oh, sorry, one other thing. The applicant also provided a memorandum to the boards, essentially walking through all of the final detailed requirements. That was distributed and posted It's unusual that an applicant would identify that, but this being a quasi-city-county project in coordination with Caltrans, we're in a unique situation that our city transportation department is part of the applicant team and knows also what we're looking for in regards to final approval. So there was a thorough memorandum that walked through not only our final approval requirements, but responses to Planning Commission comments, as well as Montecito Planning Commission comments, and also mitigation measures that are on the project. As you may recall, this is a kind of a tiered project from the highway expansion HOV project. There was environmental review done on it in 2014. We tiered off of that EIR. So there are a number of mitigation measures that apply to this project that the applicant is complying with. So we've also looked through those items, and the applicants provided information in that regard. The project doesn't require building permits because it's a public improvement, but it does require civil or C1 drawings through the Public Works Director and Civil Engineer. So that will be the step after this, not building permits, but Public Works approval of the improvements.
I may have misunderstood, but it sounded like you thought that the city needed to grant preliminary, but not Montecito, which sounds wrong to me.
No, so the city's language is, we call it project design approval and final approval. The county uses the term preliminary design approval and final approval. So we just have different terminology for the same step.
Has this project ever received preliminary from the county?
No,
Very good. So that's required today as well.
correct.
Very good, thank you.
I have a question. This one? You know, I believe I got we got an email from Caltrans that stated that the project is starting in November, which is now. So does that mean that it's starting construction next week?
The goal is to start, I believe it's mid-November, but it's still contingent on the approval today and also Public Works approval of the civil details.
Oh, so they expect to get approval in 2 weeks.
They do. So the applicant team.
Much quicker than my project.
I know, this is.
So the applicant team can speak to that a little in more detail, but essentially because it is a city transportation division is both applicant and reviewer, they work closely with our city engineer and have been coordinating those details all along. So my understanding is that they feel close to that being ready, provided our steps also fall in place and that there are any additional changes. So we still have to go through the steps. If there are changes, that is what's required. But if everything goes well, then they can start as they planned. So we just have to walk through this process and see where we stand.
I do have one question. Were there minutes from our last meeting, their last meeting, that would be a benefit to this hearing?
Yes, and they'll be presented and gone through.
Yeah, it sounds like they're gonna kind of go point by point through those as a part of their response, so.
But we have
Okay.
both available, so if you need them up they're on the screen now, but if you want to point to them at all or have any questions, feel free to call out and we'll try and put up on the screen what helps your board discuss.
Okay. If we have our applicant, we can get going.
Yes, hi, I'm Jessica Grant. I am the supervising transportation planner with the city of Santa Barbara. I wanted to just start off with a few preliminary introductory slides because it has been since 2019 since the ABR and Montecito Board of Architecture Review have reviewed this project, and then we will go into the plan details with the Mark Thomas team. Next slide. So as Ms. Arciniega had alluded to, this project relates to the 101 widening project. It is a parallel or mitigation project for the widening project. So as you know, there's been certain segments under construction over the past several years and continues to be under construction in the next foreseeable years as well. And so basically it is, the 101 project has is installing a high occupancy vehicle lane, widening the freeway between Santa Barbara and Ventura. Next slide. So the two segments that have not begun construction yet that are through the permitting process right now respectively is the county, or is the section 4D, that's a segment within the unincorporated county. And then there's, in the yellow, falls within the city's jurisdiction, and that's going through its continued permitting process as well. And so where the green arrow is the Olive Mill roundabout that we're discussing today. But the Olive Mill roundabout, and then there's the San Ysidro roundabout that's in the county. Both of those have been a parallel design process. These roundabouts are, again, a mitigation requirement for the 101 widening project, and it's the only treatment that, from a traffic congestion perspective in circulation, is the only traffic control that could move forward at said location. So next slide. So on your left is just a couple images of the existing conditions of the six-legged intersection, and then the image to your right is what the proposed roundabout is. It is a single lane roundabout. Next slide. These are just a few of the renderings that were shown during the review processes for both the design review and planning commission hearings. This is just a view as if you're right next to the Montecito Inn on the right-hand side, so looking as if you were going to go through the roundabout to approach the southbound on-ramp. Next slide. This is a view from Olive Mill Road, the south leg of the intersection, as you look north towards Olive Mill. Next slide. This is another image looking south on Olive Mill. On the right, off in the distance, is the Montecito Inn. Next slide. And then this is from Jameson Lane, as the unincorporated county approaches the city limits. And to the right, the building to the right is what we call the Price property. It's a mixed-use development. Next slide. So that's a super easy project to coordinate with. It's a lot of different jurisdictions that falls right at this intersection. So City of Santa Barbara, that's shaded in the purple area, that is our city limit line. And then in the green, and then actually the basically everything to the right would be unincorporated county. And then shaded with the Caltrans is their jurisdiction as it relates to both the southbound on-ramp and then the northbound off-ramp. Next slide. So how are we all related for this? I am part of the applicant team and also part of the reviewing team as it relates to this capital project. When this project was initially going through, the city of Santa Barbara took the lead for this project as the manager through the concept design stage all the way up to the coastal development permit processing for both the city and on behalf of the county as well. The county has also been a partner, again, in the applicant reviewer role as well. And they took the lead on the San Ysidro roundabout. We took the lead on the Olive Mill roundabout with respect to permit processing. Once we had the coastal development permit approvals, before going into final design, we had our original engineer, T.Y. Lin, and then that transferred to the Mark Thomas team. And Mark Thomas is the final design engineer for both of those roundabouts and also for the freeway. And it's very complex, and knowing all the designs and how it relates to the 101 project. So during this phase, it's actually been SB CAG now has resumed as the lead through the remaining process for the entitlements. They're the help with all the funding for this. This project has been funded. And then Caltrans will be the lead, and it will be their facility from construction and then through operation. So that's how we're all related. And then, of course, for the final design, the city and county are in the process of reviewing all of those. And again, as I think Committee Member Moore had mentioned that, yes, you've seen for construction coming. We are still anticipating a mid-November start with this. Next slide. One of the comments that came up during the 2019 was just public outreach, community outreach. This project has a very long history. I won't go through all of that because we had gone through that at prior hearings, but basically outreach has been since 2014 for this project, and has had various presentations before the Coast Village Association meetings, Montecito Association meetings, neighborhood meetings, and of course those directly right adjacent to the roundabout. We've had specific meetings with them. We've had all the hearings between design hearings, the Planning Commission hearings, City Council hearings, Board of Supervisor hearings, California Coastal Commission hearing. And then now of recent, what you've heard in the media has been all the upcoming construction meetings. Again, that's all part of the conditions of approval, is to have meetings every step of the way. And then Caltrans is resuming the lead contact during outreach at this time. So we had a meeting at the Montecito Inn last week. And I believe the Montecito Association coming shortly. So that's a continued process. So that's just general background. I will have now Matt McCaw, he is the design engineer for the project on behalf of Mark Thomas, to go through the drawings. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Matt McGaw. I work for Mark Thomas, and so can we bring up the plans? So what we did is develop a plan set that's construction plan set, and then we have a plan set that kind of highlights the aesthetics and architectural features of the project. Thank you. And so this plan set that was provided is kind of goes over the general pieces of it. So the title page kind of showing the vicinity of the project, and then the location. The existing features that are out on the project, planting areas that were previously developed from the project, and then this is kind of the general layout of how the project will be constructed, features. So right here you can see the existing off-ramp, and then North Jameson above, and then Olive Mill going up and down through the page, and Coast Village off to the left. So the existing intersection kind of comes together, and then it's going to get reconfigured into a roundabout configuration to help facilitate the traffic needs for this location. As mentioned, it's a mitigation measure for the HOV 101 project. We have a little rendering that kind of touches on some of the properties at 110 Olive Mill, as there's some specific coordination that happened with that project. That property. As we reviewed the project from what was originally developed, we kind of
Sorry, just to interrupt for a second. So we're all familiar with the project.
Okay.
I would suggest, in the interest of time, that we kind of hit the points in the motion that we made.
Okay.
And then any changes or enhancements that you've made since that time.
Yeah.
I think that would be
And so
perfect.
Getting to that point right here, this is one of the enhancements that we were actually we made on the project. One of them was the bus stop. One of the considerations was to get the bus stop to a point where it wasn't impacting the driveway, which is just above the page here. That's the exit for this Price property. And so we refined the geometry a little bit to bring the bus down, be able to utilize the existing bus stop that's currently there, and have it come in and out. So that was one of the refinements that happened with the project. I'm going to zoom back up really quick to the overall. this extension of the driveway was also extended with the project. Originally, the project stopped right at the driveway. We, with request, there's some ADA improvements and landscaping that was added to the project to incorporate and include that driveway. So that driveway was added on. So overall, that's the major changes that have happened since the prior iteration. Overall, it's basically stayed the same shape and meets the same performance checks that were originally developed. We can jump into the aesthetics if you'd like. There's a little bit more development on the aesthetics. They're match the concept and renderings that were prior shown. So the overall intent is to, have a landscape wall in the center roundabout. It helps block views, helps get people to properly circulate the roundabout. And so there's an image here that shows what it'll intended to look like, and then it kind of from the rendering where what it looked like from the rendering. Along with to be able to accommodate all the vehicles, there's some truck aprons for off tracking and stuff like that. So there's aesthetic here for the truck aprons and the rock cobble that tends to be used. The intent is to match the Hot Springs roundabout for a lot of these aesthetics for look. These are just some additional pieces. There's a driveway being reconstructed, and so there's a concrete paver that's being used, and the look that's intended for that. And then we'll get into landscape and I'll turn it over to Christine to talk about that piece.
Good afternoon. I'm Christine Anderson. I'm the landscape architect on the project. Let's see. I don't want to belabor irrigation unless you are interested in that. So the landscaping is the intent of the, The intent of the landscape is to meet the terms of the original approved plans, which you saw earlier, and the renderings that were provided as part of that. So all of our plant material is drought tolerant and consistent with those plans. There have been no changes to our plans other than to redevelop and redefine areas for consistency with the drainage plan, the drainage master plan, and other geometrical changes. Let's see. So these are the plant legend photos that we have been using, which is also consistent with the original approved plans. And the olive mill planting plan, as you can see here. So everything is very consistent with those plans. There have been no further changes. We are keeping existing trees where they are able to be kept, and we are providing some mitigations as well in some of these areas. So you can see the tree planting and removal plan. There is one inconsistency on this plan, which is that this is showing that the palms will be relocated. They cannot be relocated in the project area, in this confined area that you see here. So they will be relocated and or mitigated as part of the greater mitigation plan that's part of this overall plan. So I think you probably saw that we can't accommodate all the mitigations on this particular site because of the sheer numbers that are required. And I'll go back to this.
So that basically covers the changes that have basically happened. We've tried to stick with the original concept and try to maintain it along with through the process. So
Excellent. Concise, I like it. We are going to move to, I guess, do we need to do public comment for the city? So we have to open public comment for this particular item. Is there anyone that would like to speak?
Thank you, Chair Moore. If anyone joining via Zoom would like to speak with this item, please go ahead and raise your hand and I will call on you. Not seeing any raised hands. I do not have any speaker slips and we did not receive any written correspondence on this item. Back to you.
Great. So now we're going to move into questions. And I would like to invite our friends from Montecito to start with their questions.
Tim, questions?
No questions.
Bill?
Yeah, a couple questions. I noticed on the site plan there, if you can bring that back up, that you have a crosswalk coming off of Jameson there. Is that going to somewhere? It looks like it ends in a bike path.
So you're referring to this crossing right here that's crossing?
Yes.
That's actually a bike-only crossing. It's actually not a pedestrian crossing. So there'll be signage to try to prevent people from crossing at that location since there's not a sidewalk on that side of Jameson. So the intent is to continue the Class 2 path. So there's currently a Class 2 path on both Coast Village and North Jameson. And so if you're biking down North Jameson towards Coast Village, you have ability to use the exit ramp, use the shared use path, which is set at 8 feet wide, come across the crosswalks, go across through here, and then get back on to the existing Class 2 path. It's a shared use path to allow for multimodal to have that. But if you're in the return direction, the original concept didn't actually have something there. So one of the iterations through Caltrans and the other county and city was to add an additional exit ramp here on Coast Village, and then allow people to navigate back the same way, but then they'd be stuck on this side of North Jameson. And so to allow the bicyclists to get back on the correct side, a bike-only ramp was provided to get them back into the Class 2 on the correct side of the road.
So that'll be signed.
It'll be signed that way, yes.
Okay.
And these markings here are actually marked in green paint so that they highlight for only bike use.
Then the last question I saw on your detail sheet there, a fence detail, is that the neighbor that I saw a wooden fence, I was.
Correct, so the current property line that's along right now, it's kind of hard to see, but the existing fence line is up off of their property line. And so part of the project is to relocate the fence onto the existing property line so that it defines the correct limits of the property. And so through the iteration of boundary limits of the project and developing the site, that found that it was pushed out a little bit from where it currently is, and so the fence is going to be redefined on that new line.
And does that just match what's there? It's a
Exactly.
cedar
Yep.
fence? Okay, all right. And then, I don't know if this is the time or place, construction staging, how are you going to sequence keep traffic rolling and?
So I'll kind of go over it in large pieces.
Yeah.
So the large piece is to, first phase would be to basically close down the 2 ramps, and then we're going to take on a large portion over here to stage the work. That'll get a majority of the project built while the ramps are closed. The intent is to only keep the southbound ramp closed for a shorter duration. So within a couple months time frame, we'll try to open that ramp back up while they're still working on this larger portion of the project. Once that larger portion of the project's complete, they're going to move on to the northern corners, and they'll start working those. With that work completed, it'll allow them to adjust the traffic over, and then to be able to perform some of that area. They'll work on those areas, and then they'll kind of just work around the corner and to kind of complete.
So at this point, the only on and off ramp would be only fully closed at some point, but the other streets will remain
Correct.
open by shifting back.
Exactly. So we're trying to keep the local roads open as much as possible.
Got it. Okay, great, thank you, that was it.
Don?
No questions. Thank you.
Leiter?
I do have a couple of questions. The olive trees the olive trees in the center, have those been specified as to what size specimens are coming in?
Yes, they have been specified for the size, and they are on this current plan to show what size they are.
I haven't seen them. I don't know if we're talking 24s, 36s, 60-inch boxes. It's obviously going to make a difference.
It's on the plan.
Looks like 24. That's what it says there.
I haven't seen that.
Yes,
so-
I believe they're 24-inch box trees
Really?
and plants, yes.
Has who's in charge of the landscape installation? Is that Caltrans, or is it going to be city?
So this is being constructed with the construction management general contractor methodology. So Granite Construction is ultimately in charge of all of the construction activities, but it will be a subcontractor to Granite that will construct the landscaping for the work.
Okay. I've read someplace that you're anticipating a 10 to 15-minute wait during construction for people to kind of get themselves around this whole area. Is that still?
So I think the current specs actually have it set for a 10-minute window of delay. There could be some increase in traffic through the area, but the intent on the contractor is to limit them to a 10-minute window to be able to clear the traffic through the areas as
Right.
much as possible.
And with the Cabrillo,
Elida, design questions, please? Design.
no more questions.
And just a friendly reminder too, please speak clearly into the mic so people in the audience can hear as well. Thank you.
Claire?
No questions.
I have two questions. One, it looks like the bus ramp, when there's a bus there, is going to completely close down the south traffic on Olive Mill Road. Is that correct?
No, actually, the way it's set, it's probably hard to see in this illustration, but there's actually a stripe that'll end up here. And so the center line comes off of the median, and so there's actually room between there. And so it's going to operate very similarly to what it does now.
So cars can go past it.
Correct.
Very good, thank you. There is a non-historical Biltmore sign. What has happened with that or will happen with that, please?
That sign is being relocated with the project. And so
Into the project.
correct. And so there's, I believe in these plans, they show the location of where it's being relocated to. So it's currently going to be it's in the middle of where the roundabout is. And so
Could you
the-
take a moment at
Sure.
some point to show me, please? Thank you.
let's see so the current location is approximately right here, and the new location is going to be down here.
Very good, thank you very much. We're done.
Okay, we'll start with questions on our side. Mr. Whalen, you want to lead us off?
Thank you, Chair Moore, and I ask your indulgence for a number of questions here that may not seem all that pertinent. I take it there's not that much grading going on, is that correct, Mr. McGough?
I mean, there's going to be some grading activities between the existing ramp and the pavement, but you're correct. We're not changing elevation in the overall roads significantly. The intent is to keep the existing roads at close proximity to where they're at now.
Yes, to that event, how tall are the retaining walls at the southeast of the circle, and will they have any visibility? I guess that would be specifically from 101.
So, which retaining walls are you referring to? Because currently along 101 off the project, there are no retaining walls that are included on the project.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at a symbol that looks like a retaining
Oh,
wall
in-
on the
in-
southeast corner, on the outside of the circle, yes.
Yes,
No,
so in
no, on the outer portion of the circle,
this out here?
that.
Yeah, so those are actually maintenance bands, and so they're the cobble maintenance bands to allow for maintenance access along the roundabout. Those aren't actually walls that are being placed at those locations.
So the retaining walls that are shown on your image 8, sheet C2, where,
This is a landscape wall, and this is in the center of the
that's.
central island of
that's-
the roundabout.
That's sheet 7. Could you go to sheet 8, that one?
Oh,
That
these-
retaining wall.
These are
on
existing.
Detail, yes.
Okay, so these are existing rock walls that are currently in front of the Price property that are placed, and so these are just being maintained with the project. They're currently in there now, and we're just keeping them in place.
Thank you. And then to Ms. Anderson, with apologies, there are irrigation control boxes somewhere in the irrigation, aren't there?
Yes, yes, there will be.
It's less about where they are as to what they look like and how big are they? Are they buried in landscape, et cetera, et cetera?
Right, so these are meeting a Caltrans requirement to be placed in a strong box container, so it'll be a pedestal container where the oh, sorry, let's see, do we have? Do we have the area? One. Yeah, so the meter and controller will be right here. And it is a pedestal mounted controller inside a strong box container, so it's a stainless steel container.
Yes, were any images of that box in the set that you could show us, or could you describe visually how big the pedestal box containers are?
Right, so there are no details on that in this set of plans, but they are approximately about 3 feet high, 18 by 18 in width and depth.
So there will be
18
some
inches.
visibility from the bike path the shared bike pedestrian way, but the intention is that the landscape will cover them.
That's right. What the plan is, these plans are very schematic, as you might understand, as irrigation plans are very difficult to show the precise detailing where they'll be. So the intent is for these pieces of equipment, including the backflow preventer, to be placed in the planter that's closest and to be obscured more or less with plant material so that it's not visible from the street or from
Very good.
pedestrians.
Those are all my questions.
I would suggest if you wanted to show those on the, relative to the planting plan, that would be really helpful.
It would be.
I'm sorry, what was that?
If you could show those relative to the planting plan, that'd be very helpful to answer some of these questions.
All right, thank you. Yes.
Could you do that?
Yes. Let's see, planting plan is,
And let us know
Nope,
what
down.
is planted.
So those are right in this location.
And what's the planting around it?
Yeah, do you know how? There we go. So they will be approximately right here. The plant material itself. So we have this is a cypress, a Monterey cypress. We have, these are cercis right here. We have some agave. Let's see, it looks like some salvia along here. I'm not having a hard time seeing it here. It's a little obscured with the lighting.
Those are my questions. Chair Moore, it is a point of contention of mine that irrigation plans seldom, if ever, occur on landscape plans, so I'm glad we had the opportunity to review this.
Yes, and some coordination is required there.
That's better. I can see my plans there. So we also have Lamandra, and we have in the front, in this area, this little hatched area is Juncus. This is for a portion of the bioretention area, bioswale area. So I would say that in general, most of the plant material here is about 18 to 24 inches, maybe at most 30 inches tall, which would obscure, for the most part, the bottom parts of most of those materials and most of those appurtenances that would be placed in this area. The intent is to obscure them. However, because of the nature of the roundabout, we also have to provide view, sight lines. As traffic is moving through here, we can't obscure any sight lines of oncoming traffic coming this direction. So we've tucked everything, all the irrigation equipment, back as far as we can away from this roundabout, as much as we possibly can. But in order to do anything taller than that, we would be probably obscuring sight lines.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Anderson, questions?
No questions.
Okay, down here, Mr. Noon, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Black?
Simple questions. Thank you. Because there are 3 different jurisdictions sort of governing this project, who's going to be responsible ultimately for the landscape maintenance long run?
Board Member Black through the chairs. For this, we're still finalizing all of the details, but for the city of Santa Barbara, we'll be maintaining the majority of the landscape adjacent to the Montecito Inn and the Price property, as well as the center of the roundabout. And details to follow on the county side, but it's mainly the city of Santa Barbara with respect to the landscaping.
And the areas under Caltrans jurisdiction, the city will be maintaining those as well? Just to confirm?
With the on and off ramps, any landscaping associated in that area, it is the city's preference for Caltrans to maintain that portion.
So everything within, well, I noticed Caltrans has jurisdiction over the primary part
Right.
of the roundabout,
Right.
that landscape. So the
Yes,
city is
so
doing that,
city-
correct?
The city would do that, yes. So that's what we're working through right now on the documentation for all of that.
Okay. I point that out because, just based on my own professional experience and just seeing things around town, you could have $1 million design, but if you don't take care of it,
Right,
it doesn't look like $1 million anymore.
correct.
So, let's see, one other question for the landscape architect. So, I noticed that most of the other roundabouts in town make use of sycamores in the center, and this is a departure. What was your thinking? I'm not suggesting it had to be sycamore, but what was your thinking about the use of olives? And also, too, are those olives fruitless? Because it doesn't look that way on the plan. There's no reference to fruitless varieties like Swan Lake or Swan Hill, rather.
That's a good point. I think that's something that we can add to the plan to make sure that we're using the fruitless olives so that it's maintainable. I think that's a good add. In terms of the use of the material, that was actually dictated by the original approval of the plans, the original concept approval. So we went with what was approved via concept planning. You are correct. Most of the other roundabouts, including the San Ysidro roundabout that we're doing at Montecito, does have sycamores in it instead, but this was the selection for that, so we went with that.
And just to confirm too, the center roundabout, you made mention of the fact that you wanted it to be consistent with the design of the Coast Village Road at Hot Springs. Is that the intent still, as far as materials and look? Because I see a departure in your detail.
That is the general theme, was to try to match the Hot Springs roundabout as much as possible.
There are some deviations in items, but it's, the intent was to try to basically keep them similar, but have it be a point as well, so.
So they are going to match, or they're maybe going to match?
They're very close in look. I mean, there's going to be some small differences. I mean, the planting is probably a little bit differently, but.
I'm not talking about the planting, sorry. I'm talking about the hardscape elements.
Yes, the hardscape elements are intended to look
Okay.
like at Hot Springs.
Well, I can reserve this for my comments, but you may want to look at the detail because it doesn't really match.
Okay.
So, those are my questions.
Yeah, we can look into that more.
Thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair Six, questions?
Yes, thank you, Chair. One of my issues is the wood fence. It's just really not quality to public domain. And right now, the fence is way back deep behind planting, but the new position, it's going to be very apparent and part of the public domain. Was there any thinking, you know, I'm not, what was the politics of the fence being a simple wood fence and its location?
So the location was set to basically be on the property line of the current owner. So that was the location that was set for that. So there wasn't any setback for that that was being requested. So we kept that that location. We can look at where the placement is in relationship to it.
I think, is there a chance, and maybe the landscape architect can, there seems to be a gap between the fence, the face of the fence, and the back sidewalk. Is there any opportunity to use Boston ivy, as you've done on the southern half, or some other appropriate vine to that's a very southeast exposure, I think, a significant vine to enrich that fence would be very appropriate.
I think that's an appropriate solution for this as well. There is, I believe that there's some amount of space between the back of walk and that fence that would be able to facilitate a vine of that nature. Boston ivy might not be the best best use on a fence, but you know, we can certainly look at other vines that we've used in that area.
So then back to the engineer, is there any, at this late date, is there any way to jigger Jamison toward the freeway so there's more than just a sliver for vine planting along that fence?
So I think it's set. So I think it's currently set for about 1 foot between the back of the walk and the fence line. I don't think we can significantly shift over anything. It would create a lot of geometric changes and impacts to the overall plan that's been developed so far. But we could see what could fit in the current space that's there.
No, I'm particularly concerned about when the fence, when there's that large planting area, then the sidewalk, then the fence, that is not a concern. But when the fence is right there only, you know, roadway, sidewalk, fence, there seems to be a need to do something there.
Yeah, let us, if you don't mind, let us study that just a little bit, because I think there might be some opportunities. We do have some plant material that is smaller of nature that might facilitate that. It probably wouldn't be high, but I like the idea of vine planting along the fence and maybe something low at the base of the fence just to soften it.
While you're still there, on the Jamison Splinter Island and the Olive Mill Splinter Island, there doesn't seem to be that much. There's the Olive Mill North is slightly smaller, but it's completely void of the planting in that fat part of the finger. But it didn't seem to be that much difference in size to merit complete elimination of planting in the North Olive Splinter.
Right. So this was a design decision based on the need for the maintenance strips. We got some comments back on some of our earlier plans to provide maintenance strips around all landscaped areas, especially in those islands for maintenance to be able to work in the area. And when we started to see the resulting amount of area in some of these areas, specifically this one, Olive Mill northbound, there just wasn't, it was just such a small area that we were really concerned about the space available for planting at that point.
Okay, so you tried.
We tried, yes, exactly. And there's also another factor too, and that is part of the site distance requirement.
Okay, very good. The existing fence between the Olive Mill South and the entry to the freeway, took a look on Google Maps. It's pretty dilapidated and goes, you know, it's not black vinyl. It's has an awkward relationship at the ends with the bridge abutments. Is there any way to redo that, sharpen it up, or perhaps even move it down the slope a little bit to equal its top with the railings of the bridge?
Yeah, I believe that the fence is going to be replaced with the mainline project, with the freeway project, into the black vinyl coated chain link that's been selected for the corridor. I don't know whether relocating it is possible. We can look into, however, aligning the top of that fence with the bridge railing to make sure that there's no disconnect there, if that's
Well, right now,
interest.
it sticks up, it's awkward, it's cattywampus and things, so.
Right. We can look into that for you.
Okay, thank
if
you.
you'd like.
I assume that all these metal bumpers that are prevalent there are going away and not a overlay on Caltrans' plans to have them come back.
So if you're talking about the two safety devices that are at the end of the barrier, yeah, they're required for safety
No.
compliance.
Right now, there's the continuous metal
Got it.
bumper
Yeah,
guards.
so, yeah, there's a metal beam guardrail that wraps around the corner. That metal beam guardrail is going to be replaced with a smaller attenuator that is needed for the end protection of the bridge barrier. That's the safety compliance.
Just at the end of the bridge.
It's just at the end of the bridge.
It's
and so
not
it'll be-
continuous as it is now all around.
Correct. It'll be shortened and it'll be a smaller. You can kind of see the images a little bit in here a little bit. You can see that they wrap around now, but they're going to be these much smaller pieces that as I'm showing here. So
Yes.
they're much smaller, and then they do get stained.
Okay, good. David wasn't clever enough to phrase this in a question, so the detail for the wall at the turnaround, at the center circle shows 1.5 inch sandstone veneer, which is not, you're not able to do that in real stone where, and the Hot Spring Circle has real stone, and it's very evident that the top cap at least is 4 to 4.5 inches thick. Maybe 6. So is the intent to match, and therefore we're going to get real stone there? Or are we going to get faux, what do they call it, the concrete stuff?
The intent is to match the Hot Springs roundabout with the real stone. In fact, we just use this a very similar detail at the Sheffield off-ramp in Montecito. So you can see exactly what it looks like. It's almost the exact same.
Then you'll have to revise your detail to the appropriate thicknesses.
Right, we can revise that.
Thank you. Just a very minor, same as Dennis, concerned with equipment and so forth. The electrical plan calls out for the city meter pedestal. Do we have a finished box in green? Or I've had projects where they proposed a wood post and the plywood backing.
Yeah, so there'll be a new service cabinet there. And it does match the city standard with the green that's on the plans.
Okay, thank you. Just one more, I guess this is kind of a question. The Biltmore sign, where you're proposing it, the problem is the arrow is in the wrong direction. The arrow goes that way, and everybody wants to read it and have the arrow go the other way because everybody's going around it, as Americans do, clockwise. can we put that, would it be a better place to put it on the west side of Olive Mills south against the hotel? So at least pedestrians and so forth can see that baby.
Yeah, we could definitely look into placement of where it goes. It currently is set here so that the belief is that it would be visible from there and would get pointed in the correct direction.
Or you redo the
So I
sign?
don't know how how the placement is oriented, but I don't believe that they're rebuilding it. I think they're just relocating it. But we can look at how that configures and how that lines up with the.
I think the only
new
people
placement.
that would be able to see that arrow going the opposite way would be the people coming on the off-ramp from 101, and that's quite a ways afar. It just seems to get lost in the location right
Okay.
now. That's my questions.
Okay, Vice Chair Six asked all my questions, except for one. Can the irrigation box be painted green instead of a stainless?
Yes.
Great. Okay, that's it for the,
Say that again, I didn't hear you.
Irrigation box, green, not stainless.
Oh, green, okay.
okay, so that's it for questions. Would your group like to go first with comments and?
I'd like to make an observation. I think this project is probably ready for preliminary, but I hear way too many things that we can work on that, we can review it, we can specify the size of the tree, change the detail. That doesn't sound like final. That sounds like preliminary to me. So, at least for one person, I'm not gonna be able to vote for final today. So I would like to ask our board to comment about things to get it ready for preliminary. I think, in my opinion, it's ready for preliminary, and then we'll figure out how to get final done. So maybe others don't agree with me on that, but that's what it sure looks like to me. Tip, do you have comments, please?
Sorry, John, before we jump into that, let's carry this to the next step. But it would be great while we're doing these comments to understand like how we could ask these folks to come back. Is there a chance, an opportunity to create a consent type review for final where we might have a reduced number of board members involved?
To the chairs and then members of both boards, Ellen Kokenda, Design Review Supervisor. So I do think that there are multiple ways to do it. You can always approve a project, approve it with conditions, approve it to come back to a consent board, which in the city's case, that's just a small number of reviewers. I cannot speak to the Montecito board. But there are different ways in which to identify or address certain elements that you would want to make sure that the applicant is following up on those specific requests. So again, it could be done today through conditions, or it could be come back. It's likely that my first inclination is that we wouldn't necessarily pull together another joint hearing for such small items, but I think it would be helpful to understand in the discussion today from both boards to kind of see where there might be some consensus, again, so that the applicant has clear direction on what those conditions might be or what the specific details might be, if that's helpful. And I don't know if Ms. Arciniega wishes to say anything else, or Ms. Brown at this point.
That covers it for me. I think it's up to the boards. Yep.
Okay, so comments, Tip,
Excuse
please.
me,
Yes, Richard.
Chair Watson, would it behoove, ABR also has consent, would it?
Let's get the comments, then we'll figure the procedure.
Okay,
How's that?
okay.
Is that okay? So comments, Tip.
Well, obviously, I was really hoping for this project to start on November 15th. And today is November 2nd already, so I would like to see we can move it along. And that's my first big comment. And number two is that I think that especially the CDA, they have raised so many great issues, but I feel that those are, they are fine prints the way I see them. It's not like we see in the wrong location and the circle too big or too small and all that kind of thing. So I really don't think that we want to sit through another meeting of 15 people to discuss those low details. That's my issue number two. And number three, that, I'm actually used that around that corner probably more than most of you because our office is a block away for the last 25 years. And a lot of time, I really appreciate Richard mentioned about the sign, the Billmore sign, he probably point to my office instead of pointing to the Four Seasons by the time we relocated, which is okay. But other than that, I think that it's a great project, it's a big improvement. They should move as quickly as they can. And I think that we could make a final approval with conditions and let them finish it. I think they are capable of doing what we need to do, and I'm comfortable with that. That's my opinion.
Very good, Bill, please.
Yeah, I want to commend certainly the applicants for doing a great job. There's a lot of things, a lot of moving parts. You guys have done a great job, and I'm really in support of it. To that event, the points that have been brought up by the board members here today, I think they are minor enough, but, I think that I could certainly exercise the idea of certainly giving preliminary approval with final coming back on consent with a reduced group of people, whatever that is, whoever wants to volunteer. To your point, David, about the olive, I like the idea of the olive trees because it's Olive Mill Road. That's the only thing I think could be a saving factor for that. Fruitless olive certainly makes sense. Points brought up about the irrigation boxes, the color is certainly important, I think, and screening it away, but not blocking views. The details of the fence and the stone, I think, are going to be critical. So I think if you can work those details out, again, with a review of sorts, whether it's a discussion with the owner that has the property that the fence is on, maybe they'll give you a little extra leeway if you make them a nicer fence. I don't know. Thicker stone certainly on the, and tapering the stone as well, as the detail looks like in the photo. It looks like there's a tapered face, not a straight face like the detail shows. So with that being said, I think, I'm ready to give it preliminary with final on consent.
Don, please.
Thank you. Not to take his speech away here, but I also agree that we're ready for preliminary. I think we should have a reduced amount to go over the details before we finalize it. I would like to answer and talk about Richard Six's comments of the wood fence. I think that's very inappropriate, and especially when the vines start crawling up, and if there are vines. And I really think it should be more, either a more stable material than wood. This is going to get neglected. It's on other person's property, and he's probably not going to be concerned about it as he should. So that is, the fence is my main concern. Thank you.
Lyda, please.
Given the length of time, the time, talent, and treasure with this project, I find that in the roundabout, the center of the roundabout, to have 24-inch boxes in there is shorting the whole project. I would recommend we be more generous with the specimen trees, the size of the specimen trees.
Please.
If we can afford it, let's get. Right now it calls for 3. If we could get 3 60-inch boxes in there and have an instant beautiful roundabout. That's all.
Thank you. Claire, please.
I've been working on this project for probably longer than many people sitting here, because I drew up the original planting plan material way back in, I think I worked with Caltrans back in 1998, 1996, when this project was first laid out, you know. And there's been a lot of time and a lot of input by a lot of very, very smart people. And over the years, this is what's come out of it, you know, both by Caltrans, both by the Coast Village Road people have been to multiple meetings. And I really think that all of that should be considered by both of these boards. The time and energy over the last 10 or 15 years that have been put in, and this is what's been produced by that. I think this project is ready to get final approval and move forward and get built, you know. There's a lot of people have done, I mean, multiple hours and hours of meetings, you know, and, you know, now this is it, you know, and we're down to the details of, you know, and yes, the color of the box should be, you know, but I think it's ready to go. I don't think there's any reason to hold it up any longer. So that's my comment.
The reason I went to architecture school was to learn the phrase, God is in the details. So if I took nothing else out of that school, that's what I got. So I also think it's ready for preliminary. I do believe that there are things that if it's not specified on the drawings, will get built incorrectly or less than it could have been. I think that, I'm not so sure I would support Alida's, but I think comment about 60-inch box, but I think it should be seriously considered. And I would like to have a small group as quickly as we can get back together. It's gonna have to be public notice, there's gotta be, you know, rooms and staff and all that as fast as possible. I have no interest in slowing this thing down, but the drawings are not complete for final. And they need to be complete for final. And lighting, we didn't even talk about lighting today. It is so key. Heights of poles, photometrics, all the rest of that. So I'd like to have that be part of the plan as well. So with that said, I will do whatever I can with Sharon and whomever else it needs to be to coordinate this. And thank you. Your board, please.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a point of clarification, the lighting package is as part of, the lighting plan is part of the package before you today, just so you know.
I did not see it when I reviewed this
Okay.
morning. Thank you very much.
Okay, so on our side, we do need to get to a motion of some sort. So let's just hear everybody's comments quickly, and then let's craft a motion. Okay, Mr. Whalen, lead us off.
Okay, in that spirit, Chair Moore, there are some Howea palms that are proposed at the southwest corner, and I suggest that the designers align them to reflect the glaze openings at the Montecito Inn, either within or without them. My other comment is going to be a great big fly in the ointment. I question the wisdom at all that trees be planted in the center. This is from my experience of safety and visibility. Olive trees have quite a skirt, and due to Mr. Black's comment, without constant maintenance to keep the skirt up to allow for visibility, as I say, I question the wisdom that olives or any tree be placed in the center of the circle, but the project should move on. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson?
I agree with all the comments about the additional details needed. Just add in there the metal guardrail at the on-ramp. I think it's southbound on-ramp, included with those details. And in regards to a consent, I would be on board for that first and give it PDA.
Great. Mr. Newton?
Thank you. I also feel that it's ready for PDA and final today. I would support, the additional
smaller review for some conditions. And I agree or concur with Board Member Whalen about the use of the tree in the center of the roundabout.
Okay, Mr. Black? Yeah, I would agree with the comments about preliminary design approval, but not final. I think it should come back on consent as well. So my big, well, I've already expressed my concerns about the detail of the roundabout wall matching Coast Village. It wants to, particularly I'm looking at the cap. You know, the cap is probably a good 6-7 inches thick. And if you look at the one that's there, you'll see that. But so it just needs to be on your detail drawings. And then also there's the cobble in your apron. You make reference as it is as sandstone. I don't believe the stone that was used on the other end of Coast Village is considered to be a sandstone. Sandstone is sandstone, but that's more of a river cobble. They sell it at Santa Barbara Stone here. There's a specific name for that. I think it'd be important to get samples submitted so you get the right colors and what have you. I think that's important to be on your plans as well. As far as the landscape, I do think that definitely the olive trees need to be upsized for sure. Whether they need to be 60-inch boxes, I don't know. You'd have a hard time maybe getting fruitless in that size, but I think at least 36, 42 at least to have some impact. My general, and this is not necessarily a criticism, my general opinion of the landscape is I think the palette is nice, but I'm also always concerned about maintenance and the design as it's laid out and all your little things, all the little planting areas, they just seem a little bit fussy to me. And I just know that that's going to translate into very much a challenge when it comes to maintenance. When you have lots of little plants and little ground covers, some of the ground covers you have used, particularly the Myoporum and the rosemary, Irene, which I like both, but just be cognizant of the fact that those plants get 6 to 8 feet across spreading, and you're going to have a situation, goes back to maintenance, of always having to edge them because they're going to be growing out over the edges. I know that you've got the rosemary Irene as sort of a border on some of those splitter islands, and I'm just pointing out that it's going to be a problem long run maintenance-wise, particularly since the maintenance you'll have to consider will be little or none. That's just my opinion based on experience. So. Those are my only comments.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair Six.
Well, we still have something hanging in the air, this wood fence, and I resonate with Mr. Sharp regarding whether, I guess we could ask, if we can go back to questions, ask the applicant whether other materials more substantial, more appropriate to the public domain were considered for that wall. And what are the issues that we can't have the primo?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chris Nedden, County Public Works. The choices for that wall, because it is a private, or that fence, because it is a private fence, were worked out through negotiations with the homeowner and what they were looking for their fence that they'll be maintaining.
Okay, so it's not yeah, that, so the homeowner wouldn't accept a concrete block wall?
Vice Chair Six, I think they've spent
Okay.
a lot of
I'll-
time with
I'll let
this
it- I'll let
owner
it go.
to deal with that particular corner.
Okay, well, perhaps at least we could do as the fence as designed is alternate good neighbor, bad neighbor thing. Perhaps we could have a double layer on the public side to have a continuous good neighbor with siding consistently on that. I mentioned the looking at the chain link fence between South Olive Mill and Freeway Entry. I think that should be studied. Mr. Black has already mentioned the sandstone details. I think that, very minor, but on your bike path signage, it says except, and then the symbol bikes. I think it would be stronger if that was bikes only. And as I said again, looking forward to the minor details to see that these meters and valves and so forth are properly dealt with. And I continue to support restudying the location of the Biltmore sign. But the bigger picture, this project is a beautiful project, very sensitively, over the many years, sensitively designed, and commend all those that are involved and have produced this.
Okay, so I'm going to try and sum up everybody's comments. And I'm going to make a motion for project design approval to return to the consent agenda.
Joint consent. We'll figure out a way.
Joint, if available, if possible, at the earliest possible convenience. And with the following items. So number 1, study the location of the palms at the southwest to align with the Montecito Inn window openings. Number 2, study the tree specification within the circle, potentially to not include trees within that circle, but to certainly study upsizing the box sizes. Details to be provided. Metal guardrail, sandstone finishes. Please coordinate the cap sizes to match with existing roundabouts already constructed. Specify the cobble at all edges. Simplify the planting plan for maintenance considerations. Study the option of providing a double fence at Jameson along the private property line. Consider upgrading the fencing along the public side of that property line. Coordinate and update freeway side fencing, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay. Update signage as appropriate to read bikes only. And then please coordinate the landscape plan with irrigation plan so we can confirm that the various pieces are screened appropriately, and specify a green color for the exposed boxes. And then lastly, coordinate the Biltmore sign location. Any additions to that?
Anybody on the side?
I'll second that, well-crafted.
Okay, thank you. Discussion?
Under
Additions?
discussion, Chair, I don't know if I'm comfortable with your motion is read to introduce the possibility of no trees in the center.
Okay, so let's have a straw vote for our board. How many board members feel the circle should include trees? Okay, so that straw vote is 4 trees. So let's strike the no trees from that circle. Anything else? No? Oh,
Just,
Vice Chair Six.
yeah, just on the I think it would be easier to say authentic sandstone veneer at the sandstone details.
Okay, so in that, the list of details, can you read that off to us?
One moment, I'm just trying to find it in the motion.
Thank you.
A lot of words.
Yep.
Okay. Details to be provided, metal guardrail, sandstone finishes, roundabouts, specify the cobble at all edges, and then simplify the planting for maintenance consideration.
Just where it says sandstone finishes, just say Santa Barbara sandstone with the rolled edge, tapered edge.
Chair Moore, there
Yes.
was some discussion about planting in front of the fence. Are we still wanting them to look at that?
The wooden fence, painting the wooden fence?
Planting.
Oh, planting.
Sorry.
Painting the wooden.
Yes, so let's add, when we're discussing the option of the double fence, let's add, in addition, study potential planting options in front of this fence.
Study or provide?
Study or provide.
No. Provide / study. Provide.
Consider,
Well, I think we want to give them the latitude to study that and come back with reasons either that it can't be done or here's how they could do it.
Great.
Ms. Kokinda.
And yes, and I just want to make sure the seconder of the motion agrees to all of these amendments.
Yes.
Great. Okay. I think we're ready.
All right, I'll take the roll call vote. Chair Moore,
Yes.
Vice Chair Six.
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Black.
Yes.
Board Member Noon,
Yes.
Board Member Olson is absent, sorry, and then Board Member Whalen.
Yes.
Motion passes for ABR. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank our colleagues from Montecito Board of Architectural
Zoe,
Review.
yeah, please, can
and-
we have our motion?
Oh,
Yep.
Yes, we
And then
do. I was
And
gonna
I'm
say,
gonna
wait.
get people assigned to the subcommittee.
Excellent.
Okay.
And part of my interruption, I just want to announce that there is a 10-day appeal period. If, Mr. Terry, you could announce that. And then, yes, MBAR will have
Their
they
own
also need to make a motion.
Okay, so I will announce the 10-day appeal period for this decision, and I believe we can put it up on screen if anyone would like to do so. What's that? Do we also have to make findings? Run through the project compatibility
We
findings?
do. So let's do the project compatibility findings first, and then we can go back through the appeal process.
Okay. We can have those up. Okay, so I can make the project compatibility findings as follows. It is consistent with the design guidelines as it uses appropriate landscaping and materials. Number two, it's compatible with architectural character of this particular neighborhood as it uses similar materials found in other roundabouts nearby. Number three, it is appropriate size, mass, bulk, height, and scale. Number four, it is, as far as we are aware, there is no adjacent landmark or historic resource. Number five, it does not impact public views of the oceans and mountains. And number six, it does use appropriate landscaping, and it is all about open space. Okay.
Just for the historic landmarks, there is, Montecito Inn is
okay.
a landmark. There was a historic structures report done during environmental review, so just to reflect that it is
Well,
adjacent
so
to a
let's
landmark.
adjust number four that we find that it is sensitive to the adjacent landmark. Okay. All right, I think that's it for us.
Members of the board, I see no reason to complicate this. I would love to just take their exact wording for the motion and make it our motion if everybody agrees.
That's fine.
Yes.
Yes.
So, having said that, is there I make that motion, is there a second, please?
Second.
Any further discussion, please? See how easy it is? All those in favor?
Aye.
This is for preliminary only. And now,
Aye. Oh, so,
hang on.
Final.
Hang on, so what I'd like to do, if we can before we adjourn, I have no interest in slowing this thing down or stopping. Do you want to be on a subcommittee?
How- I guess so.
Yes, and Claire, we can have a total of 3. Anybody else want to be on it? Okay, so Bill and Claire will be representing us at the meeting, at the consent.
Okay, and I believe we have our regular consent folks signed up.
Yes, I'm not sure who they are, but we do have just the standard too, so.
Okay, and it would be excellent if Mr. Black was able to attend.
I always attended last week.
Excellent.
Okay, and then what I'd like to do, once we adjourn, I'm hoping that these 4 people, plus staff, plus applicant, can figure out a time to have the consent calendar and how to do that procedurally. It's got to be noticed, the public comment, you know, all that good stuff, okay?
Most certainly, and a notice won't be required, since project design approval was granted today, so.
It will be for us, I believe,
Okay.
okay?
We'll
So
look into that.
anyway, are we just up to adjournment? So, you want to start?
We need to make a formal motion, I think. and-
Oh, yeah.
And vote on.
On
Oh, they did vote? Okay, thank you.
exact wording.
a voice vote.
Is, I'd like to move to adjourn this MBAR meeting for today. Is there a second, please?
I'll second, yeah.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you. So that's just,
Okay,
Yeah, that's
thank
just
you
us.
very much, you guys, for making time to do this. And we will also adjourn the Architectural Board of Review agenda for today.
wait.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, can you guys just?